not want to exclude a lot of patients early in the trial. So eventually we hardly excluded any. But we went on with the 6-week lead-in period, and then patients who did not have serious side effects were randomized to receive sibutramine or placebo for up to as long as it would take to get to the required number of events. The primary endpoint decided was a composite of time to non-fatal myocardial infarction, non-fatal stroke, resuscitated cardiac arrest, of which there were hardly any, and finally cardiovascular death. This is sort of one standard component of many cardiovascular trials. So that's the outline of the trial. It was really a worldwide trial. We had centers in Mexico, in Brazil, in Australia, and then a large European contribution of centers. The study was led up top by an independent steering committee, which related to Parte, which related to an independent data and safety monitoring board. You will recall that all large studies nowadays have an independent safety committee which works completely independent of the steering committee, but who really gets access to all the data unblinded and can determine at intervals whether there's so much harm or so much benefit that it is not ethical to allow the trial to continue. We had such a committee. They did not stop the study. And then we had the independent data committee did not go directly to Abbott. They had statistical input from an independent organization, and then many practical matters of the trial, monitoring, collecting data, distributing medications, etc., was handled by external organizations. So the trial was run rather independently of Abbott, but Abbott took care of data analysis eventually. Now the timeline, this was a trial for very patient people, because we started actually talking back in 2001, and eventually in 2003 the first patient was randomized. We had the first steering committee meeting in January 2004, and I'll return to that. We kept randomizing patients until 2005, and then we waited and waited and waited for a sufficient number of events to occur until March 2009, and finally at the end of 2009 we had finished getting all the data from the trials, and it was in November 2009 that the steering committee first saw the result of this study. Now when we met early in the trial, what we saw was that the event rates, so the number of people having events was not very high. We saw that it was particularly low, 2 to 3% per year for patients with diabetes, and more with those with cardiovascular disease, and even more with those that had both. And we could actually calculate that at that time we would be less than half the number of events we would require. So what we did as a steering committee was that we said we will not accept diabetes only anymore. But we would only from that time accept cardiovascular disease or both cardiovascular disease and diabetes. In fact, we waited another year, and we saw that it was still not good enough, and that for the remainder of the trial we required that only the bottom they had to have cardiovascular disease and diabetes. By doing this, we actually got acceptable event rates in the trial. So we saved the trial, but we did not save sibutramine. And we aimed actually for a distribution of background risk of 25 patients just having diabetes, and 25% with cardiovascular disease, and 50% with both.